The July sun was relentless that Sunday afternoon in Ashford, a quaint town nestled in the English countryside where the mercury had stubbornly climbed to a stifling 104 degrees. I'd been at my future in-laws, the Harrisons, since the early morning, helping set up for the family barbecue. The scent of sizzling sausages mingled with the faint aroma of freshly cut grass, while the garden pool shimmered invitingly under the bright sky. I'd spent 2 hours perfecting Aunt Patricia's homemade coleslaw recipe, a mix of crisp cabbage, a hint of apple, and just the right dollop of mayo, and wore the navy polo shirt they'd gifted me last Christmas, the one with the embroidered family crest. Even washed my old Land Rover before driving over. Everything had to be perfect. It always did. By mid-afternoon, I was finally beginning to feel accepted. Amanda's brother, Charlie, was tossing a football with my nephews on the lawn. Kids splashed about in the pool, shrieking with delight. Mr. Harrison and I chatted near the barbecue grill about his latest restoration project, a historic manor not far from town. For once, I felt like I truly belonged. Then Aunt Patricia, with that ever-cheerful smile, looked over at Amanda and me as we sat under the pergola, the adults unwinding while the children played. "So," she said, "when are you two going to give us some grandchildren? The boys need cousins, after all." Amanda's smile faltered. Her fingers gripped the stem of her wineglass a little tighter. We'd danced around this question privately for years. I wanted kids. She always said, "Not yet." When I got that promotion, when we had more saved, when the timing was right. Always a reason to delay. I was about to reply when Amanda cut in sharply. "Not with this one." Then she laughed, waving her glass at me like she'd just delivered a killer punchline. "Maybe if I found someone with a bit more ambition," she added, smirking. The garden fell deathly silent. My heart dropped like a lead balloon. Mr. Harrison's hand froze mid-air, clutching his pint. Aunt Patricia's smile dissolved. Charlie nearly choked on his drink. Even the kids in the pool seemed to stop splashing. 4 years of early mornings fixing Mr. Harrison's garden fence, Christmas presents thoughtfully chosen for Patricia, enduring Amanda's condescending friends, all wiped away in 10 seconds. It was as if I'd been erased. I set down my beer, a crisp, cold Fuller's London Pride, the one Mr. Harrison had handed me just an hour earlier, full of warmth and approval. I wiped my hands on my jeans, looked Aunt Patricia and Mr. Harrison square in the eye, ignoring Amanda. "You're right. Someone else will give you those grandchildren." I turned and walked through the house, past the kitchen where I'd helped Patricia prep the food, past the family portraits lining the hallway, including one of Amanda and me on our wedding day, and out the front door. The ceramic bowl on the hallway table caught my eye, the one I'd given them one Christmas. I grabbed my keys, heard footsteps behind me on the gravel driveway. Mr. Harrison caught up, his hand landing gently on my shoulder. "Son," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Wait." I shook his hand off, turned. "I'm not your son anymore," I told him quietly, "but I respect you too much to make a scene here. Tell Amanda her things will be on the porch." Through the window, I saw Aunt Patricia clutch Amanda's arm. Her face was as pale as a sheet. Amanda just looked annoyed, as if I were the one overreacting. I eased my Land Rover out of the driveway, still careful, still respectful, even as I drove away from 4 years of Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, and painstakingly earned respect. And I felt nothing but clarity. That evening I arrived at my mate Keith's flat in Guildford. Keith opened the door with a grin, handing me a cold beer like I was a guest of honor. "Guest room's yours," he said with a wink. His wife, Jennifer, was less subtle. She crossed her arms, eyes sharp. "What happened?" I told them everything, every brutal word, every stunned silence at the barbecue. Jennifer's jaw dropped. "In front of her family?" That's harsh. Keith just shook his head, muttering, "Bloody hell, Brandon. What did your lot say?" "Well," I shrugged, "Robert chased me down the driveway, calling me son. I told him I wasn't anymore." Keith's eyes softened. "That's rough, mate, but it shows she's the problem, not you." Overnight, my phone buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, 47 texts from Amanda. First, furious ones. "This is ridiculous." Then pleading, "We need to talk." And finally, "My dad wants to call you." I replied once, "I have nothing to say right now." The next day, Keith and I returned to the flat to collect what was mine. Amanda was at work. I packed methodically, leaving the wedding photos behind, framed smiles frozen in happier times. But I took the toolbox Robert had gifted me that Christmas. A hefty craftsman's set, 270 pieces, with an inscription, "To my son-in-law for building your future." The word stung now, but it was mine, a symbol that no one could take away. Later that evening, Robert left a voicemail. His voice was heavy with regret. "Brandon, it's Robert. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. What Amanda said, there's no excuse. Patricia's furious with her. I've always considered you family. I still do. Please call me back." I saved the message but didn't return the call. He still believed in me. She didn't. By Thursday, I'd canceled the family holiday to Cornwall we'd booked for August. The reservation was under my name. I'd put down $1,000 deposit, got $650 back. When Patricia mentioned looking forward to it, Amanda texted, "You canceled Cornwall." "That was for all of us," I replied, dry as a British summer. "I'm not family, remember?" Over lunch, Keith asked point blank, "Are you divorcing her?" I shrugged. "Not sure yet, but I'm done being the punchline." Jennifer called 3 times, asking if I was okay. I was better than I'd been in months. Keith studied me over his pint. "You do seem lighter somehow." I smiled bitterly. "More like less weighed down by nonsense, like I finally stopped trying to fit into a square peg hole." That night I lay awake in the guest room, the distant hum of the city outside the window. I thought about Amanda's words, the laughter, the joke, the humiliation, and wondered if I had the strength to walk away for good. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going back to that barbecue as the punchline. Not ever. The following week I found myself sitting in a modest solicitor's office in Guildford's Renaissance Square, staring at the polished wooden desk where Thomas Brennan, a no-nonsense gentleman in his 50s, laid out the facts. His tweed jacket was slightly worn at the elbows, his spectacles perched low on his nose, giving him the air of a man who'd seen a few divorces but not lost his patience. "So, Brandon," he began, 4 years married, no children, community property state. Well, since we're in the UK, the laws are a bit different, but the principles stand. You have a joint account with $8,400, separate pensions, and a rental agreement for the flat. If you're serious about divorce, filing first gives you the upper hand. I nodded slowly. I'm not sure if I want to divorce yet, but I know I want respect. If I'm serious about this, what should I do? Separate your finances immediately. Open your own account, transfer your share from the joint funds, document everything. It's about setting the tone. You don't want to be the man who lets things slide. I paid the $300 consultation fee and left with a folder of paperwork that felt heavier than its weight in paper. That very afternoon, I walked into a nearby branch of Barclays and opened my own account. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings, $4,200, with a note. Separated finances as of July 22nd. Remaining balance is yours. With a dry sense of satisfaction, I updated my payroll details, redirecting my salary to the new account. I left the joint account open but stopped putting in a penny. Later that week, Patricia showed up at Keith's flat unannounced. Jennifer let her in but stood close by like a protective sister. Patricia looked worn out. The usual sparkle in her blue eyes dimmed. She held a glass of water Jennifer handed her, but didn't drink it. "I need to apologize," Patricia said quietly. "You didn't do anything wrong. I raised Amanda. Somewhere along the way, she learned it was acceptable to treat people she claims to love like that. I failed as a mother." I shook my head. "Patricia, please let me finish. What she said was cruel. It was disrespectful to you, to Robert, to the idea of marriage itself. Your family's been married over 30 years. You've had tough times, but I've never seen you humiliate each other in public." Patricia sighed, a tear escaping down her cheek. "Thank you for saying that. I'm not saying it for gratitude. I'm saying it because it's true. You've been nothing but kind. You showed up, helped, remembered birthdays, brought me that book on behavioral economics, just because I mentioned it once." She smiled through the sadness. "We do like you, Brandon. We love you. Which is why seeing you walk away broke my heart." I looked her in the eye. I understood why I left, but it still hurt. She paused, then asked gently, "Can I be honest? Did you think I wasn't good enough for Amanda?" I swallowed. "At first, yes. I worried she was settling. She has a master's degree. I never finished university. She earns almost double what I do. On paper, I wasn't the obvious choice." Patricia nodded slowly. "And now? Now I see that paper doesn't show character. You were the first to offer help, to be reliable, to treat her with kindness, things Amanda never seemed to value. I'm ashamed I ever judged myself by salary." Patricia reached into her bag and pulled out a small card. "If you ever need to talk, call me." I pocketed it, feeling a flicker of warmth amidst the cold reality. That night, alone in Keith's spare room, I stared at the toolbox Robert gave me, the inscription glowing faintly in the lamp's light. "To my son-in-law for building your future." Maybe it was time to build my own. A few days later, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table of our old flat in Ashford, the place Amanda and I had shared for the last 4 years. The sunlight filtered through the half-drawn curtains, casting soft patterns across the bare walls. I was carefully packing my belongings, methodically separating what was mine from what was ours. My hands trembled slightly as I wrapped the framed wedding photo in brown paper, a frozen moment of hope now tinged with heartbreak. Amanda's footsteps echoed on the stairs. She still wore that pale blue sundress from the barbecue, the delicate fabric clinging just enough to suggest the contours beneath without being overt. Her hair was slightly tousled, and her bare feet thudded softly on the hardwood floor as she stormed into the room, eyes flashing with frustration. "That was incredibly dramatic," she said, voice sharp. "You embarrassed me in front of my entire family." I looked up slowly, meeting her gaze. "I embarrassed you?" "No, Amanda, you embarrassed me. It was a joke to you. God, can't you take a joke?" She rolled her eyes, waving a dismissive hand. "Really? Which part was the joke? The 'not with this one' line? Or the 'someone with ambition' bit? Everyone knew I was kidding." I leaned back, voice steady. "Your mother's face went white, Amanda. That's not how people look when they think something's a joke." She scoffed. "Fine. I'm sorry you can't handle my sense of humor." I shook my head. "I can handle your humor. What I can't handle is being humiliated in front of people I've spent 4 years trying to earn respect from." She crossed her arms, defensively. "So what? You're just leaving over one comment?" "No," I said, packing the last of my clothes into a duffel bag. "I'm leaving because you meant it. You said it out loud, but you've been thinking it for a while." Her eyes narrowed. "Where are you going to go?" "Keith's place," I said without hesitation. "I'll be back Tuesday for the rest of my things." She stared at me for a moment, then turned away, leaving the room in silence. I closed the door softly behind me and didn't look back. That night, Keith's flat in Guildford felt like a sanctuary. Jennifer had prepared a simple meal, roast chicken and mashed potatoes, and the boys were asleep upstairs. Keith poured me a pint of ale and clapped me on the back. "You did the right thing, mate." I nodded, biting back the lump in my throat. I don't know what comes next, but I know I'm not going back to being the punchline. Keith grinned, raising his glass. "Here's to new beginnings, and to not being anyone's joke." I clinked my glass with his, feeling a flicker of hope amid the wreckage. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now I was walking it on my own terms. Nearly a month later, I found myself in a small, sunlit room at the local council's housing office in Mason, a quiet town tucked beneath the rolling hills outside Ashford. The walls were painted a calming cream, but the tension in my chest made the space feel suffocating. I was here to get off the lease of the flat Amanda and I once shared, a 3-month commitment I no longer wanted hanging over me. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Helen with sharp glasses and a sympathetic smile, listened patiently as I explained the situation. "I need my name removed," I said, voice steady though my hands clenched the paperwork. "There are 3 months left on the lease. I understand there's a buyout fee." Helen nodded, flipping through the files. "Yes, $1,600. Both parties usually need to agree, but if not, the one leaving pays the buyout." I swallowed hard and handed over my card. "I'll cover it." Helen gave me a knowing look. "It's not easy, is it?" "No," I admitted quietly, "but it's necessary." That evening, as dusk settled over Mason's cobbled streets, my phone buzzed with a message from Robert Harrison. "Can we meet? Just us. Coffee at Copper Star on Central High Street, 8 a.m. tomorrow." I agreed, feeling a mix of apprehension and relief. I needed that conversation. The next morning the cafe was already alive with the aroma of freshly ground beans and the soft murmur of early risers. Robert was there, seated at a corner table, his usual joviality tempered. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, motioning to the chair opposite. "Of course. I owe you an apology for not standing up for you sooner. You left that day, and I should have said something, right then, when Amanda made those comments." "What would you have said?" "That you're a good man, that she was wrong, that she was lucky to have you." I looked down at my coffee. "Do you believe that now?" "I do. Honestly, when Amanda first brought you home, I had my doubts. You seemed young, a bit raw around the edges, but over these years you showed up, you worked hard, you cared, you were family." I felt the weight of his words, a mixture of comfort and regret. He leaned in, voice low. "There's something I haven't told many, just Patricia last year. Remember when we built that deck together? What was meant to be a weekend project stretched into 2 weeks. Patricia said, 'That boy works harder than half the people in my office.' She was right. You measured twice, cut once. You asked the right questions. You cared about doing it properly." I smiled despite myself. "I enjoyed that project." "I know. That's when I knew you'd be fine. More than fine. Amanda didn't appreciate that." He paused, then asked quietly, "Are you filing for divorce?" "I met with a lawyer," I said, "but I haven't filed yet." "What's holding you back?" "Years of history. I did love her. Maybe still do. But love isn't always enough." "No, it's not." "What would it take to try again?" A genuine understanding of what she did, not just an apology because she was caught. Real change. I looked up, meeting his gaze. "I'm moving out of the flat. Took my name off the lease yesterday." He nodded, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. "Take this." "What is it?" "Security deposit. First month's rent, whatever you need." I tried to refuse. "I can't take your money." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you because you're still my son, even if Amanda doesn't deserve to be your wife." Emotion welled up in me. Thank you, Robert, for everything. He smiled, the familiar warmth returning. You're stronger than you know. By the time August rolled around, I'd settled into a modest one-bedroom flat in Mason, perched on the third floor of a red brick building with a view of the distant hills. It wasn't much, smaller than the place Amanda and I once shared, but it was mine. The rent and deposit had come courtesy of Robert's generous envelope, a lifeline when I needed it most. The day I signed the lease, the air was thick with late summer warmth, and the scent of freshly mown grass drifted in through the open window. The walls were bare, the floors creaked with age, but as I turned the key in the lock, a strange sense of freedom settled over me. Keith and Jennifer came over that weekend to help me move in. Keith lugged an old sofa from his house, worn but sturdy, while Jennifer brought over a coffee maker and some curtains she'd picked out. Their boys, Charlie and Jack, were buzzing with excitement, exploring every corner like it was a castle. "Uncle Brandon's got a new house," Charlie announced, waving a sanding block like a trophy. I laughed, ruffling his hair. "I'll teach you how to build things soon enough." Setting up my new place felt almost therapeutic. Every item I unpacked, from the simple wooden coffee table I'd bought at a local market to the tools Robert had given me, was mine, not ours. Mine. That Sunday afternoon, I was halfway through assembling an IKEA bookshelf when the doorbell rang. Standing there was Amanda, looking worn and vulnerable. Her makeup was smudged, and her damp hair clung to her face as if she'd been crying. She still wore her work clothes, the tailored blouse and pencil skirt that contrasted starkly with the casual calm of my new flat. "I found your address on the lease papers," she said, voice trembling. "I thought we could talk." I let her in but kept my distance. "This is your new life without me," she said, looking around the small flat with a mixture of disbelief and something like regret. "It's not our flat anymore," I replied quietly. "It's mine." She shook her head, tears spilling freely now. "You gave up our apartment for this? It's pathetic." "Maybe," I said, "but it's honest. It's mine, and it's where I'm building a life." She stepped closer, voice cracking. "I think you're being childish, punishing me to feel powerful." "No," I said firmly. "I'm protecting myself." "From what?" "From one comment, from 4 years of being the joke, from wondering when you'd find someone with more ambition and leave me." She took a painful breath. "I wouldn't have left you." "But you thought about it. That comment, that was you telling everyone you kept your options open." Her shoulders shook with sobs. "Fine. You want the truth?" "I've wondered if I settled. You don't have a degree. You're not climbing any corporate ladder. My friends ask why I'm with someone in construction. My colleagues don't get it. And sometimes I wonder if they're right." I swallowed hard. That's the honesty I needed. Not the joke. The truth. She wiped her tears, voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean it. I did mean it. And now we both know where we stand." I looked at her, feeling the weight lift slightly. "I'm glad you said it. That comment hurt like hell, but it woke me up. I'd been trying to earn the approval of someone who would never give it." She nodded, the room heavy with silence. "Your salary, your degree, they'll never be enough in your eyes. I'll always be the guy you settled for." "That's not fair," she whispered. "Then why make your family laugh at my expense? Why choose that moment to remind everyone I was temporary?" She broke down completely. "It wasn't just about you. The pressure at home. My mother asking about children. My father talking about legacy. My friends all having babies, buying houses. And I was still renting with someone who wasn't good enough." I shook my head. "You didn't say that. You didn't have to. You showed it. Please, tell me what to do. How do I fix this?" "There's no quick fix," I said softly. "You can't apologize your way out of revealing who you really are. You showed me I'm only worth as much as you decide. I don't know how to make it right. Then don't just leave." She left crying. I sat on the floor, surrounded by half-assembled furniture, exhausted but relieved. The truth was finally out. Monday morning arrived with a grey drizzle, typical of early autumn in Surrey, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel heavier. I sat at the kitchen table of my modest flat, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding. Across the line, Thomas Brennan, the solicitor, awaited my decision. "I'm ready to file," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Are you certain, Brandon?" he asked gently. "Yes. Amanda showed her true colors. I've heard enough." That same day, just as I was locking the front door to head to work, there was a hesitant knock. I opened it to find Amanda standing there, her eyes red-rimmed, makeup smudged, wearing a simple navy sweater and jeans, a far cry from the polished woman who had humiliated me months before. "I need to talk," she said softly. I hesitated but nodded. 5 minutes. She stepped inside, the weight of months of unspoken words hanging between us. "I know it's too late," she began, voice trembling. "But I want you to understand I didn't mean to hurt you, not like that. I was ashamed of myself, of where I was in life. I compared you to some impossible standard, one I got from people who don't matter." I listened, the anger I'd carried slowly melting into something quieter. "I quit my job," she continued, "the one where I felt embarrassed you worked in construction. I'm working at a charity now, helping build homes. I'm finally starting to understand what matters." I nodded slowly. "That's good, Amanda. I hope it makes you happy." "It doesn't," she admitted, tears spilling again. "Because I lost you." "I don't expect you to forgive me," I said. She shook her head. "I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know I was wrong, so incredibly wrong." "Is there any chance?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Not now, not soon, but maybe someday." She nodded, understanding. "I hope you find someone who sees what I couldn't, and I hope you find yourself." We parted ways, walking in opposite directions down the narrow street. For the first time in months, I felt a breath of peace settle over me. It was over. Really over. That evening, Keith and I sat in my flat, nursing pints of ale. "You seem different," he said, eyes searching. "Lighter," I admitted. "Sad, but lighter." "Are you filing?" "Yes. Doing what I should have done months ago." He smiled. "Good. You deserve better." Over the following weeks, I threw myself into woodworking, a hobby born from the very toolbox Robert had given me. I crafted a simple oak coffee table, sanding each edge carefully, building something that was entirely mine. It felt like therapy, each stroke of the plane a step toward reclaiming myself. Amanda started therapy too, I learned later. Her sessions helped her confront her insecurities, the real reasons behind her cruel words. She made lists, what I contributed versus what she valued. Emotional support, loyalty, love, contrasted with prestige, status, appearances. She stopped calling, stopped texting, showed up at family events alone, humbled. Patricia confided later, "She's finally understanding, but it might be too late." Amanda wrote a letter, her therapist's suggestion. She never sent it, but the words spoke volumes, an acknowledgement of what she'd done, why it was wrong, and a glimpse of hope for change. "You deserved someone proud of you," she wrote. "Not someone measuring you against an imaginary standard. I didn't believe in myself. I'm sorry I made you feel less than you are." And I knew then, the truth, painful as it was, had set us both free. By the time late October arrived, the sharp chill in the air matched the finality settling over me. The 60-day waiting period for divorce in England had passed, and my meeting with the mediator was set. The room was sterile, a small conference space in the local family court, its beige walls and fluorescent lights making the whole process feel more like an interrogation than closure. Amanda and I sat across from each other, separated by a polished oak table. She looked different. No makeup, hair pulled back loosely, dressed in a simple gray jumper and jeans. Gone was the confident woman who'd publicly humiliated me months ago. Instead, there was a quiet vulnerability, a remorse that hung heavy between us. The mediator outlined the split. No shared assets beyond the cars we'd purchased separately. Amanda would keep the flat until the lease expired, and I would keep mine. The paperwork was straightforward, clinical. The dissolution was scheduled for 2 weeks out. After the session, as we gathered our things, Amanda hesitated, then approached me quietly. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes." My solicitor's eyes flicked nervously between us, but I nodded. We stepped into the courthouse hallway, the murmur of footsteps and distant conversations surrounding us. "I know it's too late," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I wanted you to know. I understand now. I understand what I did, why it was unforgivable." I looked at her, the weight of months pressing down. "Go on." "I spent 4 years with someone who showed up, who cared, who loved me, and I couldn't see it. I was too busy comparing you to some impossible ideal I'd picked up from people who don't matter." "I'm sorry." She paused, swallowing hard. "I quit my job. I'm working at a charity now, building homes with my hands. I get it now. Worth isn't measured by titles or salary." I nodded slowly. "That's good, Amanda. I hope it makes you happy." "It doesn't," she admitted, tears brimming again. "Because I lost you." I sighed. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Nor do I," she said. "I just needed you to know you were right. I was wrong. So wrong. Is there any chance?" "Not now, not soon. Maybe someday." She looked down, then met my gaze. "I hope you find someone who sees what I couldn't, and I hope you find yourself." We parted with a quiet nod, walking away into opposite directions on the cold pavement, the finality of it all sinking in. That night, sitting alone in my flat, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The chapter was closed, but a new one was beginning. Just as I was about to turn off the light, my phone buzzed. A message from Robert. "Brandon, if you ever need anything, remember you're still family." I smiled, a warmth spreading through me. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about those who stand by you when the world turns away. Winter crept into Mason with a biting chill, frosting the edges of the bare branches outside my flat's window. The days grew shorter, but inside something was beginning to thaw. My woodworking hobby blossomed into more than just therapy. I started selling pieces at the local market, cutting boards, small tables, each one a testament to patience and care. One crisp Saturday morning, as I arranged my wares beneath a patchwork umbrella, a woman approached. She was in her early 30s, with chestnut hair pulled into a loose bun and bright green eyes that sparkled with genuine interest. She ran her fingers over a set of handcrafted chopping boards, smiling. "Did you make all of these?" she asked. I nodded. "Every single one." "They're beautiful. Real craftsmanship." Her words warmed me more than the autumn sun. She bought a cutting board and lingered for a few moments. We chatted about the market, the town, and the simple joy of creating something real. As she walked away, I realized something profound. For the first time in years, someone appreciated me. Not my degree, not my salary, but my actual skill and effort. Some people spend their whole lives trying to be enough for someone who will never think they are. I spent 4 years doing exactly that. Then one sentence at a family barbecue changed everything. Not with this one. Those 4 words freed me. They hurt like hell, but they freed me from chasing impossible standards. They taught me that respect isn't optional. that partnership requires equal appreciation, that being enough starts with believing you are enough, not convincing someone else. Amanda learned her lesson too late, but she learned it. Sometimes people only understand what they had after they've lost it. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is reveal who they really are, so you can decide if that's someone you want to build a life with. I'm building a different life now, one where I'm appreciated, not tolerated, where my worth isn't measured by someone else's arbitrary standards, where a chopping board I made with my own hands means more than any job title ever could. 6 months ago, I drove away from that family barbecue. Today, I'm hosting my own. Just me, Keith's family, and Robert and Patricia, building new traditions, making new memories. Turns out, when you walk away from disrespect, you make room for respect to find you, and someone else will give them those grandchildren. Just not me. And that's exactly as it should be. The sun dipped low over Ashford as I stood in my backyard, the soft glow casting long shadows across the freshly mown lawn. The smell of grilled sausages and roasted vegetables filled the air, blending with the laughter of children chasing one another around the garden. Keith's boys were here, their faces flushed with excitement, while Robert and Patricia sat comfortably beneath the pergola, sipping tea and sharing stories. I caught sight of Jennifer setting out plates on the picnic table, her smile warm and genuine. The day was simple, unpretentious, a gathering of friends who had become family in the truest sense. I looked down at my hands, rough from hours spent sanding and shaping wood, and smiled. These hands had built more than furniture. They'd built a new life, one grounded in respect and self-worth. As the evening settled, I found a quiet moment beside the fire pit. The flames flickered, casting dancing light on faces filled with contentment. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. But just as I was about to raise my glass in a silent toast, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. It read, "You don't know the whole story. There's something Amanda never told you. Meet me at the old mill tomorrow at noon if you want the truth." A chill ran down my spine, sharper than the evening air. The past, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. I looked up at the stars beginning to pepper the night sky, heart pounding with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Some stories don't end quietly. Some mysteries demand to be unraveled. And I was about to step right back into the fire,